Our 4:45 panel is the Pundits and Pollsters panel. Our panelists for the evening are Fred Davis, Anne Hathaway, Jeff Larson, Fred Wszolek, Dave Doyle, and our moderator is Mr. Robert Blizzard. Please give them a warm welcome.
Hello, welcome. My name is Robert Blizzard. I'm a partner with Public Opinion Strategies. I'm going to let each of the esteemed panelists do a quick, short introduction of themselves. But just a few words. This is the Pundits and Pollsters panel, and so we're going to spend most of our time talking about key issues facing the Republican Party. And with that, I'm going to let maybe start with Fred and work our way down. Everybody just do a quick little introduction.
I'm Fred Davis. I live in California, an evil state west of here. And I've been a media guy for 40 years and in political media for about half of that time. And our clients are in the Senate world, Jim Inhofe, Chuck Grassley, John Cornyn, Lamar Alexander, Bob Corker. There's a lot of them. And in this fair state, Rick Snyder is a client. And I wrote the one tough nerd line, so I think that's what got me here today.
I'm Anne Hathaway. I know many of you. I was the regional political director from the RNC from 2001 till 2006. Went on to be chief of staff of the RNC, managed Senator Coates' race in Indiana in 2010, and was the program director for the convention last year. Yes, I lived through the Clint Eastwood incident. I know, and some of you thought it was going to be Anne Hathaway, the actress here today, but it's not. It's Anne Hathaway, the Republican. Thank you.
I'm Jeff Larson. I live in Hudson, Wisconsin, just to the west here, and I've been in politics for a number of years and lots of different jobs at some of the committees, state party executive director. Started a company called FLS Connect a number of years ago, and sold that in 2010, and became chief of staff of the Republican National Committee in 2012, working with Ann in the convention, the presidential campaign, and all things in between. And happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Fred Wszolek. I'm a Michigan native, and I currently live near Charleston, South Carolina. I'm a partner in a firm called WWP Strategies, and I'm here to help our client, our great Attorney General, Bill Schuette.
Hi, my name is Dave Doyle. I've been coming to these conferences since 1981, and I think I've had just about every political job you can have on the Republican side. I've run the House and Senate Michigan Republican campaign committees, been the executive director of the Michigan Republican Party, was fortunate to be the chairman from 91 to 95 and host 2 of these conferences. And since then, I've been working with Marketing Resource Group. We do public relations and political consulting. In the last couple of cycles, we helped the Michigan Republicans and the House Republicans capture the House majority and retain the majority. And we've helped elect several conservatives to the Supreme Court, to the best Supreme Court in the country.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. In order to get the ball rolling, I want to do something that when I travel around the country and do focus groups, I usually start the focus groups with a question like this to kind of get them warmed up. And so the question generally is, when you think about how things are going in the country, or when you think about how things are going in Michigan, what's the first word or phrase that comes to mind? And so I want to ask our panel, when you think about how things are going in the Republican Party today, what's the first word or phrase that comes to mind? Maybe a couple lines on why. So maybe start with Fred.
I would use, to me, the word would be divided. And mainly the typical Republican Party and the Tea Party. Not that either is right or wrong, but a divided party is not going to win. And that would be my first thought.
I'm spending a lot of time in Indiana working on women. And why do women, who are 53% of the voting population, want to be treated, or why are they treated like a coalition or a special interest group?
I'm going to, say opportunity. I think that we really have an opportunity this cycle to really change America, and not only, I think Fred's right. We somewhat are divided, but I think there is a real opportunity to come together and work together to to show the American people how we can work together, and I think add seats to the House, keep the governors that we have, and take control of the United States Senate. So I think it's an opportunity.
I think we're kind of a little mumbling right now. When you look at a lot of the states, you know exactly what those states' governors are doing, and they're doing a very effective job of communicating their agenda and their plan and their vision, and Washington isn't. It's just this noise. There's just this cacophony of people arguing, and I don't think we're doing a very good job of saying what the Republican Party is for other than defunding Obamacare. Everybody knows we're there, but we haven't offered any sort of positive vision of what are we going to do to improve anybody's day-to-day life.
I'd say the word for the Republican Party here in Michigan is strong. If you think about this, we control the Michigan House, the Michigan Senate, the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, and the Governor's Office. The last time Republicans controlled all of those offices was 1948. We have a great opportunity, and we were not successful in holding on to them, but we've got a great opportunity in this next cycle to hold on to everything because of the strong policies of Governor Snyder and the legislature. I mean, one thing, I thought when John Engler was elected in 1990 and what he did in the first 4 years was amazing, a lot of tremendous changes. We've seen more changes and more reforms in the last 3 years under Governor Snyder and our legislative leaders in the House and Senate, and we're turning the state around. So I feel we're in strong position right now.
So, as far as the, just kind of piggybacking on a few of the words and phrases you all used, what do you think, and open up to whoever wants to start with this, what do you think are our biggest challenges as a national party, as a national brand? Is it our policies? Is it our tone and tenor? Is it our messenger tactics? Give me an idea of what you think. What is, and it might be all of the above, that's fine, but what's the, what do you think is the key is there a silver bullet out there that's the biggest challenge facing the party right now?
We've got some candidates who've got terrible candidate skills in an era where you're under constant video surveillance, and they're not choosing their words very carefully, and then everybody else in the rest of the country has got to explain away what they just said. I wish they would all just fake a heart attack and throw themselves down on the floor, because, that's just, the Democrats have gotten very skilled at capitalizing on one person's gaffe and making all the rest of us own a little bit of it. And if we could, really train these guys so much better to not make these mistakes on camera all the time, we would have fewer bad days.
I think the other thing I would say is nationally, I think that the problem becomes is that we control one house of 1/3 of government, and that we can't make change. The only way we're going to be able to force change is by taking control of the Senate in 2014 and the presidency in 2016, and we're going to have to come together. But we can do what we're going to do in the next few days here in Congress, but we're not going to win that battle of defunding Obamacare or shutting down government. It just isn't. It's just not going to happen. And so I think it has to come to people have to realize that we really only control the House of Representatives, and that's a little tenuous at times. And so I think it is that. Clearly, I think tone matters, and I think that Fred is right that that what we have candidates talking about and how they say it, is very impactful to what people hear.
I agree. I think that people forget that by having only one house, the role of that house is to be the firewall and to stop or to try to stop. And sometimes that we get hung up on the fact that, they're for nothing, they're against everything. And it comes back to tone. It comes back to key phrasing. It comes back to a vision and a message. And that often happens when we don't have the White House.
I can't beat tone matters. I think that says it all. We're often mean and heartless and rich, party of the wealthy. I'm glad you're all very wealthy to be here and be Republicans, but we all know that's not true. But our tone is off, but I think the National Party is doing a really good job moving that in the right direction. We just have a ways still to go.
Yeah, along that point, my next question would be, so after 2012, what lessons, I mean, I know it's early on in this next election cycle, but what lessons do you think that the national Republicans have started to, I don't want to say learn, but started to at least implement and kind of move forward with in a positive way?
I think the National Party gets great credit for what they're doing at the grassroots level. I think we've gone back to the basics with regard to investing in coalitions, investing in the voter file, investing in just so many things at the grassroots level that allow us to get organized, to be activated in order to fight this battle one-on-one.
I agree with that. I think if you go back, to 2002 and 3, that's when the Republican National Committee started a team leader program, and it was driven by George W. Bush, and we've gotten away from that, of giving people certain tasks to do, having them do them, follow up, but really be in the communities and really have a strong ground operation that embraces everybody and gives people some accountability, track it, measure it, and be able to give people their results and give others the ability to see who's succeeding and who's not. And I think that the National Party is going to invest a lot in that in the next 2 years, and I think we're going to have to, because it is the Democrats have a much better organized operation, just because it comes together naturally, not because it's forced, but it's just a natural coalition that they have that is easy to put together.
I think one of the things that we need to learn from this election, and we've learned it here in Michigan, seeing the re-election of Governor Granholm. Everyone says that, re-election efforts of presidents or governors are a referendum on the president or the governor. If that were the case, then Granholm would have been defeated, Obama would have been defeated. These elections and the lessons we need to learn are not just about the incumbent. They are about our candidate, our party, what we stand for. We need to do a better job. And the election isn't over until the final vote is cast, because we do see some swings in areas over the last few days, and enthusiasm can, wax and wane in a very short period of time, because 24 hours is a lot of time in the political world these days, with the way everyone is communicating. Look around the room and see a number of people looking down at their smartphones right now and seeing their emails and putting out messages themselves. So we need to keep that in mind, that the election's not over until the final vote's cast.
What are lessons that you may not see the Republican Party moving fast enough to implement, or things that we still need to do a lot to improve upon from 2012?
I don't think we're quite there yet on early voting and absentee voting. And if there's one place that Democrats have achieved a bit of a mastery, is in the early voting game. We don't have that to the extent that other states do, but that's a big challenge.
I think that's right. I mean, I think we've done a better job of absentee than we have on early vote, but in these states, that we have to learn how to win the early vote, the vote numbers. I mean, in Florida, in the 2012 election, we felt like if we were down only 100,000 votes on early vote, that we would win the general, that we would win a general election. And we ended up being down about 60,000 votes, but we lost the state by 70,000 votes. And so it is one in which we're going to have to learn how to be better at that and embrace it, because it's here to stay. It is not going to go away, and it's going to expand, not get smaller.
Right. And I would add to that election day, what we call election day operations, and not to get into the weeds, but the Republican Party is still hampered by what we call the New Jersey consent decree, and our ability to make sure that every vote is legal and a legally cast vote on election day or early and absentee.
In the last election in Michigan, over 26% of the vote was cast by absentee. And we didn't do well in some key targeted areas. You look at Oakland County. We lost Oakland County by I think it was 54, 45. We lost the absentees. It was a little bit closer margin, but it wasn't a dramatically closer margin. So we really have to focus on that. 26%, we're going to see probably 30%, if not higher, in the gubernatorial election this time as absentee voters.
And Fred, I think it's really hard for you guys, doing the media. You got places like Colorado, Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, where by the time you get to election day, 75% of the people have already voted.
We had 80% in Arizona.
Right. It's just it's just amazing. And that's going to continue. I think that
And
mail-in ballots.
You're right. People make incremental changes. This early, we got to be a little early. They don't do enough. 80%, the election's over.
Right.
Well, and it changes totally how you budget a campaign,
Sure.
when TV messaging starts. I mean, it's a huge, significant impact with regard to the timing and the flow of a campaign.
Last minute surprises don't move the needle at all when 80% of the vote is in. You
Exactly right.
can't move the needle.
Which is not as fun
No.
as our job used to be, Fred.
I think the other area is technology, and technology is an all-encompassing area that you can put a lot of different things under that bucket. But I think the data scientists and the people who are able to analyze the data that we have, that is coming from so many different places today, whether it be Twitter or Facebook, the ads that are running, the digital ads that are running, putting all that together and being able to analyze it in real time and be able to make snap decisions is something that I just haven't seen us be able to do as well as a group that Obama put together and they had 3 years to hone in on it. They had a number of millions of dollars to put behind it, and I think they were very, very effective at it. It's not that they had more data than we had; they had better people analyzing it and being able to make decisions based upon that data, and then having the content to be able to put forward, to address the different pieces that they were seeing. So I think technology also is a big area that we've got to.
Okay. A couple questions from the audience. Let's start off with actually one I just got because it's kind of topical. Something that Fred Davis mentioned early on was kind of the divided being the word or phrase. What issues do you think we can use as a party to kind of build the bridge between Tea Party type Republicans and non-Tea Party type Republicans?
Well, I wish there was an answer for that.
Easy question.
I'm going to answer it in a different way. To me, it's going to have to come down to, in our primary process, it's fine to speak your mind, to try to get the candidates you want to win. But when they don't, or when it gets too loud and too destructive of everything on the Republican brand side, it makes it so much harder for the eventual winner to win and beat the Democrat, which is sad, I think. So I don't know the issues that are going to bring them together. I think what I would love is for everybody to stop and think, remember, at the end of the day, the worst Republican is a heck of a lot better than the best Democrat as far as our future of our country goes. And if we kind of try to all keep that in mind and have our friends keep that in mind, we'll do a heck of a lot better as a party.
Yeah, I think that is a perfect point. I mean, I lived through, and a lot of people in this room lived through the battles that happened in this state in 86, 87, and 88, when we were at caucuses and convention meetings, and literally there were yelling and screaming going on between the multiple candidates running for president. And in one case in downriver, there was actually fights and the police called because things got so contentious. But we were able to pull back together after the convention. And remember, people did look at the difference between our candidate and the Democratic candidate, Mike Dukakis. And we had a stronger party in Michigan because of all of the new people that came into the party. But we were able to come together and focus. Now, 1988 was the last time Republicans carried the state for president in Michigan. So it can be a good, healthy thing, provided we come back together and remember what Fred said. The worst Republican is a lot better than the best Democrat. And particularly when you look and see what is happening on the Democratic side of the aisle. They are being pushed so far left. All of their candidates, on every position you can think of, are extremely liberal and to the left. So,
What issues do you think we can use to appeal to not just our base Republican vote, so Republicans, but also that kind of work our way into that moderate independent spectrum? Are there issues and policies for 2014? Yeah, Fred?
Yeah, I think that by 2014 Election Day, people are going to be talking about cost of living issues, perhaps more than anything else. Middle class wages have gone nowhere in 5 years, and the price of everything has gone up. And government inflation statistics say that that's not true, but we know that's a damn lie, that everything's more expensive. And we get these periodic spikes in gas prices here in Michigan, and everyone, really has a hard time kind of keeping things together. If every single Republican can frame their economic policy and their energy policy and those sorts of things around getting wages rising and getting costs under control, explain how your energy policy is going to mean that Americans will pay less at the pump. And I think we're going to appeal to a lot of middle-class families that way because the numbers just aren't adding up for a lot of people anymore with the way wages are kind of stagnant.
I agree with Fred, and I think Rick Snyder is an example of someone who's done a pretty good job of couching his basic entire approach on helping your family, helping your individual family economy, and I think it's worked.
I think the other issue is going to be, spending. I think that this is going to be an election about spending, whether it be on Obamacare, just government spending overall, and the cost of government that continues to rise, that creates more regulations and makes it more difficult for people to start businesses, continue business. And I think it's these last few years of Obama's administration. He's going to want to continue to be relevant. He's going to want to continue to be relevant to his base, and I think that's going to provide us opportunities as he overreaches and the Democrats overreach on some of these issues.
Yeah.
I think those are both great points. And again, we have a governor and we have a legislature that have done a great job trying to focus on, bringing your kids and grandkids who have left the state back to Michigan so that they can get a job. We are starting to see personal incomes rise here. We've seen 200,000 new jobs, and we're seeing the Republicans, in the governor's office and the legislature tackle the tough spending issues that nobody else would touch over the course of the last 20 years. And whether that's in Detroit or our, state pension liabilities and all those, they've taken those issues on and are making the state a better place for my kids and, someday grandkids.
Slightly changing topics. President Obama, one thing that their campaign did extraordinarily well in 2008 and 2012 was energize young voters. As a matter of fact, if you look at exit polls, 18 to 29-year-olds actually comprise a larger share of the electorate than senior citizens. How do we as Republicans energize and get 18 to 29-year-olds over to our side of the aisle?
Tone matters. We'll go back to that.
You nailed it.
Not all at once, yeah.
Tone matters, and I think it goes to the subject we just discussed, our vision with regard to jobs in the economy. I think if we're talking about anything about good paying jobs and the economy and reducing spending, we're off message. And I think young people buy into that. I believe that they look at the future and what it means to them and their families and what kind of life and lifestyle they'll have. And we need to do a better job of articulating our message.
But within, as Fred said, all of that, I agree 100% in, within the right tone.
Yes.
And the Democrats and Bill Clinton and Barack Obama have done a way better job of making the average guy, not you, think that they care more about the average person than we do. And we're the rich, evil guys, which is just not the case. So you get the tone right and you get that message right, and we'll bring them back.
One place our tone is horribly wrong is on environmental issues. This is
Oh,
a generation.
yeah.
This is a generation that has that as a highly valued part of their identity. They value the environment, and they hear us sneer at them we don't have to agree with them on every single environmental policy, but we don't have to sneer at them for being, to think that's an important part of their agenda.
Right. Sneers, that's a good word. We do a little too much sneering.
I mean, I think the other word that they view us as is intolerant, and so I think that is that's another area where again it becomes tone, it becomes becomes part of our message. But I think we also have to talk to them. I just don't think we get out there. To Ann's point, I don't think we talk. We don't get on the campuses enough. We don't get to these places enough. And I think that it is one of the areas that I think that the committee is going to try to move towards and be more more open and be able to talk about those issues. I just think that it's that we don't talk enough to young people about what the future is and in the direction that this country's headed, and I just don't think they're not believing it.
I think Jeff's word, tolerance, is a very, very important word, and we can't say it often enough.
One guy doing it right is Marco Rubio. He's captured a little bit of pop culture in a way that Republicans are normally too starchy to do. He posts his playlist, on his Facebook page, and it's music that people in the 18 to 25-year-old generation have heard. And I think that's, being approachable and likable goes a really long way.
Yeah. There's no question about that. And one of the questions earlier was, what is a challenge for the party? The challenge for us is among 18 to 29 years old. I mean, I go back to the 1980 election, and Ronald Reagan brought in a whole bunch of new Republicans and got young people enthused. And Barack Obama has done that, and the Democrats have done that. We have to turn that around. I mean, this is a huge challenge for us. And if you take a look at polls, and you can still, have your position and, talk about your position on whether it's gay marriage or abortion or anything else, and still feel very strongly about it and vote your conscience. But you have to be willing to listen to other people and be tolerant. That take a look at the issue of gay marriage among 18 to 29-year-old people. They just think about that issue completely different than all of us. And you can still be successful by holding to your principles, but you just have to take a different tone when you're talking to people about it.
And they're not listening to the same shows we do. I mean, they don't listen to the nightly news. They're getting their news from Comedy Central, and we're still trying to advertise on the 10 o'clock news. And it's a complete. I mean, having two kids that are in that age group, it's amazing where they get their news from, what they get out of it, and how crazy they think we are for watching live TV or for watching TV. So
Yeah, you could ask people under 30 to name one anchor of the network news, and they would have a tough time coming up with it. When Jon Stewart is a place where you're getting your news, we have a problem.
Something Dave touched on a little bit earlier, and it's happened in some states, but especially here in Michigan, where Republicans have been pretty successful statewide here in Michigan in more of a blue-purple kind of state. How do we replicate the Michigan model, if you will, nationally? What's working here in Michigan that
get good candidates.
What's that?
Candidates matter.
One issue that was an important part of holding the Republicans together in Michigan in the 90s was welfare reform. And we're back to where welfare needs to be reformed again. So let's maybe go there.
Do you remember the opening line on the One Tough Nerd ad? It was, "We were 50th out of 50, dead last." I think that was part of what helped the resurgence here. Not the line, but the state was so bad in so many areas that mattered that, what we tried to capture was that, hey, how insane is this? Let's try a nerd. We've tried this, we've tried that, nothing's working. And I think the tone of the country is getting close to that, which in an odd way sort of plays into the hands of a Rand Paul or somebody. I think this is going to be a fascinating couple of years coming up.
As a political operative myself, and I'm sure everyone here on the panel has just dug into what the Obama campaign did in 2012 in terms of data, using big data, and how they had 800 people working in caves in Chicago to go through and analyze data. what role do you think that big data will have in the upcoming midterm election, and then go ahead and extrapolate to 2016?
Big data will have a big role.
Yeah.
Good line.
Well, the software is getting so sophisticated, and the ability to turn out usable findings so rapidly, it's almost impossible to implement all of your options. You can customize 60 different campaigns, but then you actually have to write copy and scripts for all this stuff, and then run it through legal and get approvals. And there's just not enough bandwidth during a busy campaign to run a campaign on 60 different tracks. The online campaign that they ran is pretty phenomenal. I mean, completely different email campaigns on 10 or 20 or 30 different tracks.
And are we as a party, do you guys see, are we catching up now? Are we implementing more big data? I know it's early on, but what are you guys seeing out there?
Again, I think my sense of it is that it's not that we don't have the data, it's how are we analyzing it, and as Fred said, what are we doing with it once we have it? It is a lot more work than you would think to have content that you're delivering to a woman, a single woman who lives in the suburbs, than it is to a rural 70-year-old farmer that lives in the rural part of the state. Those are two completely separate messages you're sending, and you've got to have content that speaks to that and their issues that they want to have. And I think that is one of the challenges we had in the last campaign, is we didn't have enough content that we were delivering to those people. We could identify them, we just didn't have anything different to say to them. And we did have something to say, but it didn't, we didn't have, as you outlined, it's a lot more work, to get the, approvals on 30 different messages and getting that all cut and getting it done. And we're
And
just
it's a
gonna have
lot
to be
more money.
And it's a lot more
Right.
money.
And nobody that runs a campaign likes to spend production costs.
Right.
Fred, do most people come to you and say,
They
could
love
you
it.
possibly double the production costs on that? It doesn't happen. So I think those 2 points are exactly right. The big data, so here's an example, your governor. He is a data guy. He is instituting an enormous data program here in Michigan. Now, what's going to be done with it? I don't know. I mean, I'll be involved in it somehow, but I don't see the big budget increase to be able to do what you guys are talking about.
And Fred, to that point, how much of it is a culture issue, and changing the culture of how Republicans traditionally run campaigns? I mean, when you hear and read about everything that Obama and the Democrats did in 2012 with data, is there a culture shift that needs to happen within kind of Republican campaigns?
Yes, but I think that's happening. I just don't think it has happened yet. And to me, it's really more of a recognizing that if you go that route, people now are willing to spend the money and the resources on the big data. I don't think they're there yet on doing something with it on our side. But the Democrats did a pretty good job of it.
But one of the big problems that we have as a party is that if you're the Democratic Party and you can identify every single different group out there and what they stand for, and you're willing to raise taxes and spend money, you can go to them with a special message that says, we've got a program for you, and we've got a program for you, and we've got a program for you, and each one of your little groups. And that's what they have been doing over the last several years. It's a little harder when, as a Republican, you're saying, what we're going to try and do is bring down the cost of government. Some of those programs that you like, we're going to not spend as much money on them as we have in the past, but we're going to try and get back on, strong economic footing so that your kids can be employed. It's a little harder, just as a party to go out and come up with those individual messages. That's part of not having content. And the Dems have content. They're willing to spend as much money as possible on anybody and tell them, we've got a program for you. Heck, they're giving everybody phones, they're giving, they want to do cars. And it's tough to argue with somebody. Say, you're 21 years old, we're going to pay for your college education, we're going to give you a phone, get your car. The other guys, you'll get to pay back the student loan at a higher interest rate.
I think we have to there's so many young, talented, people out there today that have ideas and have, widgets that they're producing, and I think that the Democrats are more open to letting them share, experiment, give them access to data. I think we have to, change. That's a culture change that we're going to have to make is giving people better access to the data so that, that they can experiment, they can do things, they can find new innovations that we may not be looking for right now, but are out there. And there's a lot of very, very talented young kids that are Republican that want to help, and I think we have to give them access to that.
A couple of audience questions. First, there have been some differences between Tea Party Republicans and social conservatives. How can all the groups start working together under the Republican banner?
It's a coalition, so you kind of either going to live inside a coalition tent or you're going to go off on your own. The other big divide that is coming is over foreign policy. I don't think the Republican Party has been as divided over an interventionist versus an isolationist foreign stance in as long as I've been paying attention. Yeah. And I'm not sure how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, I'm not either. I hate to keep beating the dead horse, but you have to look at the end result. State your mind, try to get your way, but if you don't, pull back together, like you said, at the end of the day, and support the Republicans and all work together. That's the. I don't know of some big, huge issue, maybe you guys do, that's going to override that divide. And I think you said there's some division between, that's a big division, and people are going to have to get over it.
So they're going to have to get, if they want to win, they're going to have to work together.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
If they decide that they don't want to win and they want to continue down this path that we are at today, that's an option. But if we're going to win, they're going to have to pull together and work together.
Yep.
And it seems to me that all the current big arguments that we're having are tactical. It's not like what we're trying to achieve. We're all trying to achieve basically the same stuff, but some people don't like the way some people are trying to achieve it. So, then we're all mad at each other because we don't like your plan.
All right.
Question for Ann, and Ann, you mentioned as your word or phrase early on, women. Why do you think women tend to vote more heavily towards Democrats, even though the party mistreats women in some ways?
What we're hearing when we talk to women is that they're Republicans because they believe in a fiscally conservative plan, less government, and strong national defense. That's why they are attracted to the Republican Party. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on where you are, a lot of the leading that we're doing now with regard to messaging comes back to social issues. And Republican women, they don't care. I mean, if I ask women, I had this debate last week with someone. They said, well, you must be talking to women who are pro-choice. And I'm like, no, I will tell you that these women are pro-life, but that these are not the issues that are most important to them and to their families right now. They're worried about how much it costs for gas. They're worried about the education that their kids are getting. They're worried about whether or not, as their child gets older, whether they're going to be potentially go to war. We really need to think about the issues, and I go back to tone and tolerance. So many of the young people today, if you talk to them, they don't see white, yellow, black, or brown. They see people that they go to school with. They see problems that need solutions. Frankly, they don't see gay or straight. They're not sure, the person next to them, what their preferences are. At the end of the day, they just want people to get along. They want this to be a united, prosperous country where we're making a difference, and that we go back to being the strong national power that we are, or international power that we are.
Okay, what's going to happen if Hillary's the nominee?
From my perspective, I think it's really scary. I believe that it could be another phenomena election, and that it won't be about our candidate and how great they are and how they want to change the country, and that there'll be this tidal wave that, oh my gosh, it's time for a woman president, and get behind her.
Mm-hmm. There's another little small thing that I think we need to work on, and that is if she happens to be the nominee and Barack Obama. I did John McCain's ads in 2008 for president. And we had a lengthy list of things we were not allowed to talk about because that might offend them. And that doesn't mean the African Americans, that meant the world at large. And so we were not able to fully vet Barack Obama before he was foisted upon us. And I could see something like that happening with Hillary because, uh-oh, she's a woman. You know, you probably know Hillary. I know Hillary. She's a woman, but she's a tough woman. So she can stand it. But if we are kid gloves and hands off, they're not hands off on us.
That's right.
I feel kind of optimistic about what Hillary will have to go through to win the nomination. Everyone who's thinking about running is going to try to run to the left of her, and they're going to drag her as far as they can. She may come out of that more damaged than Obama came out of his nominating process.
Howard Dean will rise again.
He's trying.
Yeah. Next question from the audience. Close to home kind of question here in Michigan. What can Republicans learn from what happened in the city of Detroit and the bankruptcy and all the issues surrounding that? I think, Dave.
What can Republicans learn from that? Well, I think Republicans have learned that somebody has to step up to the plate and take care of the problem, and I think that's what the governor has done. And the governor, frankly, I don't think wanted to appoint an emergency manager, the city of Detroit. He came up with a consent agreement. Unfortunately, the mayor and the city council didn't move forward with that consent agreement, and the governor's hand was forced on that. Actually, I think it's the best thing that can happen to the governor now is that something positive will start to happen in the city of Detroit. Whether it's getting lights being turned on someplace, better police response times, you know, anything happening positive in Detroit is a good thing. It's a good thing not only for the governor in trying to get African American votes, but it's certainly good in the rest of the state where the appointment of the emergency manager is extremely popular outside the city of Detroit. It's also fairly popular inside.
Right, you gave us some numbers backstage, didn't you?
Yeah, in a survey done by Marketing Resource Group, 43% of city of Detroit residents approved of the appointment of a city manager. 43%. Now this is a city in which Republicans typically, if you get 10%, you're thrilled, 10% of the vote. In this last 2012 election, Mitt Romney got 2.08% of the vote.
Wow.
There was, 200 and I think we came out of the city of Detroit with a 250,000 vote, margin that we had to make up. And a lot of that is straight party voting, so you're probably not going to pick up much, but if we can pick up 1 or 2% there and pick up a couple of percent every place else, particularly when you look at the presumptive Democratic nominee who, was against the emergency manager, now is talking like he may be for it and, wants to see it implemented properly. I think that's a tremendous contrast for us, not only in the city, but certainly every place else.
All right, we got ahead of the curve here in Michigan and did it right on when it comes to pension funds is Brooks Patterson.
Yep.
They fixed their pension fund shortfalls, through some creative bonding, and their finances are as solid as almost any municipality in the country. And almost every public pension fund is using bogus assumptions about their rates of return, that they're going to get consistent every year 8% returns no matter what with no risk. Right. And so I think you're going to see so many more Detroits around the country. Half of them will be in California, the other half in Illinois. And there's just going to be a lot of cities going belly up.
I think that's exactly right. And I don't know the exact nature of Detroit, but I just think that in all these cities, pension funds, the education systems in these inner cities, the welfare programs. I mean, and the African American community is going to have to come to grips if this is the path that they want to continue down. I think that the education system is doing them an enormous disservice, and I think they are stepping forward to try to fix that. I think there's going to be a lot more cities like this, and it's the corruption in some of these cities is ridiculous. And
I think the lesson maybe learned is that like Rick Snyder, like Scott Walker, Republicans can quit kicking the can down the road, can make a bold, positive difference, even if somewhat controversial, and come out of it on top.
All right, we just got a couple minutes left. I'm gonna ask two last questions. First one, everybody's working on different races, different parts of the country. Give me a under-the-radar race that you're working on or that you know about that you think could be kind of a big surprise, you know, about this time next year. We'll start with Fred and work our way down.
Oh, great. Don't ever come out here first. We have several. You know, the under-the-radar ones typically have startup problems. And you know this very well. And you hope that all the pieces fall into place. There's a guy in Nebraska that we're doing a Senate race for. He's not a leading contender at all, named Ben Sass. And he's a really smart guy, and I'd keep an eye on Ben Sass. There's others, but I think he'll be an intriguing one.
And what about you?
In the last 4 weeks, Governor Pence in Indiana appointed Dwayne Sawyer as the first black statewide office holder in Indiana. And we're working on his reelection, and I think that you will see him reelected next year, and I think that you'll see him around for years to come.
You know, I think in Minnesota you have Al Franken, who won a recount after counting the ballots 3 times. He finally got ahead and they stopped counting. You know, is up for re-election this time, and I think that you know, he's not done anything, but he's not anything wrong. But I think we have a really strong candidate there, and I think that will be a very competitive race in Minnesota.
This isn't something we're working on, but we do a lot of ballot proposal work. And one of the things I think you're going to see around the country this cycle, and definitely in 2016, is a lot of proposals to legalize marijuana. And with the demographic change in the country, these things are passing. And I think you're going to see a lot of it, and it very much motivates younger voter turnout, which is something Democrats want to do.
Under the radar is the Michigan U.S. Senate race. I'm not involved working with any candidates, but if you take a look at whoever the Republican nominee is, will be running against somebody, a congressman whose first task after starting to represent the city of Detroit was hiring the former chief of staff to Kwame Kilpatrick after he got out of jail. Now, I don't think that's going to go over very well in the city of Detroit or any place else in the state. And that, I think, tells you all you need to know about the Democratic candidate. So I think whoever our nominee is has a great opportunity in 2014.
All right, last question. 10 seconds, no more. We'll start with Dave, work our way down. Big, bold, crazy prediction for 2014.
I think Republicans sweep everything again here in Michigan, 2014. So
Okay. Fred, what do you think?
I think the U.S. Senate could come our way if we don't blow things up in the next 10 days.
I agree with that. I think the Senate's our opportunity in 2014.
The Senate is it.
Yep.
Big focus.
Well, my focus today is your nerd, and I think you're stuck with 4 more years of nerd is my guess.
Well, on behalf of the panel, I want to thank you guys for coming out today, and thank Fred and Jeff, Fred and Dave for participating. And thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.